Hey guys, I couldn't resist making a final video the morning that I am meant to be discharged from the Mental Health Act under which I have been held for 2 weeks because it is designed in a way that separates the individual from their native tribe, that forces them to use their memory in order to know who to call, as I experienced at the last place. Here I've been able to keep my cell phone the entire time. But the other one was a very different story. And then I say, I'm going to speak out about such things that happened to me while I was fully lucid because I was actually not medicated at all. I refused any and all medication and I said I can self regulate just fine, thank you very much. Unlike my forms, which actually say that I cannot and that I am a threat to both myself and others. When there is not one person in this world, not even those who have hurt me, who I would like to hurt. Doesn't mean that I don't have moments where that sure might change if something were to happen to certain people or individuals or things in my life, but at the same time, it is the fight that is happening between us, the good and the bad wolf, the right next to my health card, that my wristband that actually was on there just long enough and just loose enough that it stayed on the entire time, and now just is able for me to slip on and off, as oftentimes happens to the people that get sucked into the mental health system. Not because of the ones that work here, but simply because the system itself is designed for people to not get out of it. It is about getting people that are intelligent enough to get themselves out of the system altogether, to trap them so that they get stuck. Now, putting the label aside, literally, now it is time for us to simply say that there was a post on Facebook that I shared about how when the white people like me first came to this country, to the Americas, where there were already people living here, such as the First Nations, the Six Nations, the Métis people, the originals, all of those people who were originally in these lands were basically forced with gun, Bible, and book, BS, the system that ties us to a particular Bible that says this is the way, the only way, to the truth, the light, the Lord. Well, what if the Lord was actually the LAD apostrophe, LAW apostrophe D rather? What if the Lord was actually the Laud, the ones who understood the universal laws, and that understood the law of reciprocity, that you give what you get, that understood the law of polarity? For every up, there is an equal and opposite to it. So therefore, there is an equal and opposite down. To the right, there is a left. To the high, there is a low. To the front, there is a back. To the right, there is a left. What if to everything there was an equal and opposite, and there was all about balance, and learning to actually balance the kundalini that I was then told was a very frightening thing, and that some of the Six Nations, if I were to mention such a thing as that K word, would then be scalped because it was not true, and it would taint and turbulently describe and separate the ones that were connected through their original belief system. Well, what if wisdom was about learning that we actually learn in three ways: first by reflection, then by imitation, and then by experience, and that if we must, it is just simply about starting somewhere. This was a shirt that a friend of mine gave me before I then got scared of his commitment to the system, to the old monopoly, to the dinosaurs and the ones that came before that said we need to do life in a certain way in order to be deemed enough. Well, what if my message, and the one that I hope that you take away from this, is that you already were. You already are enough, regardless of the label, whether it is a medical diagnosis or whether it is as CEO or whether it is as a housewife, or a homemaker, or someone that volunteers their life in exchange for raising our future generation, for which there is no more important role than that. We must stop taking the values that we have in terms of the money we get for our time. We must stop using that to put labels over our heads and simply realize that we are enough as we are simply because we are. We all came here and we're all like ants that are slightly more conscious because we actually have a conscious mind, whereas a lot of nature is simply operating on the subconscious level. They're fully in the flow, they're fully in the feelings of it all, and they just are going where they feel called to go, like what I oftentimes do when I'm in my heart, which they say is the greatest 16, 18 inches between your head and your heart. Think about it. That was the fall out of Eden. From the heart into the head, we stopped feeling and we went into our mind. What if all of the times that we start feeling now, we actually felt them instead of trying to suppress them and medicate them? While I was here, I medicated myself, or I allowed myself to be medicated, I should say, simply because I wanted to get out of here. And I felt like I would have been trapped had I not followed the rules. And so tonight, last night, the 14th of October, was the first night that I refused my medication, simply because I've already told them when I leave I'm not taking any. Not any of their man-made pharmaceutical brands, like what pharmacists push, but instead I'm going to find my own path to figuring out how to be Planet Laura to the best of my ability. As I've shared with other people that are in here who are struggling with the diagnosis that their doctor has received. Well, if I were to show you my original Form 1, which was given to me after I was checked into Simcoe General Hospital on the 27th of September, the day after my due date in 2019, if I were to show you that form, it literally says that Dr. SOS diagnosed me. I didn't see Dr. SOS. I saw a Dr. Pat at the second hotel, at the second medical center, and at the first in Simcoe. The doctor that diagnosed me only gave me a form to read to look into Goff's work, who has a theory about holotropic breath work, which can basically help you reach enlightened states without the pharmaceuticals, without the psychedelics, without the external assistance, instead just using the breath. Well, what if that was what I was here to teach, and so I had to go through the experience myself in order to do it? And then what if you were to look at whatever you are experiencing right now as a challenge? What if you were to look at that in the same way? That would be a profound experience for us all to share. And then this right here is one of my favorite shawls. And I bring it with me where I go oftentimes simply because it's so comfortable and it's so convenient. And if we have the opportunity to wear white when we are teaching, isn't it the best thing for us to do because white allows us to stay pure? Well, what we must also realize that Raphael gave me this when I was in the Hilton Embassy Suites in Scottsdale, where I had the privilege of paying to stay for a week nearly, while I worked all kinds of white magic and simply ran around and blessed people and freaked a lot of people out too. Because the difference is there are fearful people and there are faithful people. And then there are also faithfully fearful people, and there are fearfully faithful people. So we must be very careful and clear about which camp we choose to stay in. And then we must also realize that as the Cherokee grandfather told his grandson, there is a wolf that is fighting. There are two wolves that are fighting inside of you right now. One wolf is good. It is peace, it is love, joy, passion, enthusiasm, authenticity. It is clarity, encouragement. It is all things nice and lovely. That wolf is very good and nice. But the other wolf is very mean and bad and evil, and it will try to kill that good wolf with everything that it has and all of the force and all of the might these wolves will use to fight each other. And what we must realize, as the grandson asked his grandfather, Which wolf will win, grandfather? So concerned. We must realize that it is the one that we choose to feed. Will we feed the good wolf? The one that is faithful, the one that has hope for humanity and that realizes that keeping ourselves safely separate into boxes that we put God into simply mean that we turn God backwards, which is to put God into a dog. And what do we call a female dog when it latches out? Yeah, we call her a bitch. And so many of us females have decided to reclaim the term bitch because it's something that we can be proud of. Just the same way that I repurposed the term loser, because for so long I deemed myself as a loser. And I played small and I stood in the shadows and I let other people take the lead, because a true leader doesn't need to lead from the front. A leader that has a different leadership style, I should say, like myself, chooses to lead from behind. Because as much as I'm an I personality, which means that I'm interactive and I'm expressive and I like to make it big and be the center of attention, only for a little while. Then when we start getting stressed, then we actually revert to our second personality trait, which mine is an S. Mine is the supportive, caring mother hen that likes to come up behind and make sure that everybody's doing good and just check on, are you okay? Are you okay? And that's really what I've been doing while I've been here at Waterfall 1, Hamilton's best waterfall. It's really been a lot of fun being here, and it's been amazing connecting with the other people that are here, because so many of us are these planets that are so freaking amazing. We are scared of our own power because the people that love us most are scared of us, and so we think, well, God, there must be something wrong with us. Well, it took me checking myself in, calling the OPP on myself, who then sectioned me and then gave me 72 hours of voluntary hold, during which time my family turned their back to an extent because they were fed up with me having all of these ridiculous notions about what's actually going on and didn't want to listen. And so instead they said, Laura, get them to medicate you and figure out what's going on with you, get their diagnosis, and then choose to live your life according to their diagnosis. Well, Planet Laura has never been so good at being told what to do, especially when it didn't make sense, and especially when it didn't feel right. And it was the first time in my life that my family have not been the ones to say, okay, particularly my dad. And that was the hardest thing, when my dad said, no, you've put me through the ringer. And I don't blame him, because I totally became a vampire in May when I went through this same kind of experience of trying to play small but try to leap forward at the same time. And that polarized experience in the same place just meant I was spinning in circles and circles and circles and circles, and it wasn't helpful at all. And in May, I went into such a low place because I didn't know how to be me if I couldn't be actually me, that I went into a really bad space. And my dad said, Laura, your job is just to be happy. Your job is to find happiness. Well, what if happiness is not a place to find, but is actually a place to create within ourselves? My dad gave so much to me in May that this time, when I needed him, he was already burnt out from the last time and scared of what to expect, because I had been an energy vampire who just sucked from him a lot of energy and time, and even not money so much, but my dad and my family have all done a lot to help me become who I am. And there's an element of them that wishes they hadn't, because now I am unsafe and potentially even make the world more unsafe for them, because whenever there's a restructuring process in the leadership of the world, or whatever world you're living in, and I mean the one inside of our heads, which is the one that's based on the BS, the belief systems that we govern our lives by, all of that is simply to say that if we are going through that resettling phase, it's very uncertain and it feels very scary. And I want to keep this video under 15 minutes, so I'm going to wrap it up now and simply say you get to choose. You get to choose which side of the fence you're going to fall into, because you're going to fall into one of them. And if you don't know what you stand for, you will fall for anything. With that, I say, Laura J, namaste. The light in me honors the light in you. And may you choose to take a stand for what you believe in. Thank you so much, Laura J. Namaste.